Hi, I'm Ben Ferguson, and welcome to your AMAC Weekly News. First up, in a big story this week, liberals are proving their true level of hypocrisy with their unwavering support of Joe Biden. This even after a serious sexual assault allegation against him. I'll give you the latest on this and how it compares to the treatment that liberals gave of the Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh in just a moment. Up next, a bombshell hit this week as we found out the true mishandling of the Michael Flynn case by the FBI. It turns out the FBI under the Obama administration decided to see how far they could stretch the rules so that they could entrap him. More on that in a moment. And finally, the pandemic has opened America's eyes to the true threat of China to the U.S., specifically when it comes to our medicines. We will be joined by Rebecca Weber, the CEO of AMAC, to discuss a very important issue of AMAC Magazine coming up. All that and more in just a moment. But a quick reminder, please share this video right now with your family and friends on social media. Your AMAC Weekly News starts right now. So if it were up to liberals, the entire Tara Reade sexual assault allegation against Joe Biden would just disappear. It's not that they actually believe Joe Biden, but they are so desperate to beat President Trump in November that they are willing to overlook allegations of sexual assault against their own candidate in order to win the election. Now, this has gone so far that even attorney Lisa Bloom, who is known for representing women with sexual harassment claims, tweeted this out. I believe you, Tara Reade. You have people who remember you told them about this decades ago. We know he's handsy. That's referring obviously to Biden. You're not asking for money. You've obviously struggled mightily with this. I still have to fight Trump, so I will still support Joe. But I believe you, and I'm sorry. That is how much they hate Donald Trump. These people are literally willing to overlook this just to beat him. And let's deal with the reality here. You have an actual sexual harassment claim against the frontrunner of the Democratic Party. Yet, they still say they want to vote for a guy that they believe assaulted a woman. And it's not just that. Nancy Pelosi not only endorsed Biden, but she also refuses to answer questions about the Biden allegation. In one of her most recent comments, she flat out says she is, quote, not going to answer this question again. Watch this from her interview on MSNBC.
Do you view this as a closed issue, or what is your response?
Well, it is for me. I have said I am proud to support Joe Biden for president. I believe him when he says it didn't happen, but I also believe him when he said let them look into the records. And that's what they should do. But I'm not going to answer this question again.
Now, the real question the media should be asking is, why is Nancy Pelosi so hell-bent on not answering this question? I'm going to answer that for you, by the way. It is because she knows how damaging this story can be to Joe Biden's presidential campaign. What is even more ridiculous is how different the liberal and the media's reaction to this is compared to how they treated Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh during his confirmation hearings. There were major differences between the allegations and especially those who made them. Just look at a couple of the main differences. Christine Ford, for example, couldn't remember the location, the date, or the time of when her allegation took place. Second of all, she didn't tell anyone until 3 decades later. And there is no police report that she was willing to file. Compare that to Tara Reade, who's accusing Joe Biden. First off, she remembers the location, the date, and the time. She told numerous people when the accusation actually happened, and she filed a police report to back it all up. Now, liberals had already declared that Kavanaugh was guilty before the hearings even began. You don't believe me? Take a look at this montage of how the left responded prior to the hearings on what they wanted to happen to Brett Kavanaugh.
Well, I've heard, many predators say and refute allegations against them. I think what we need...
As I said, I believe Professor Ford. I think she's credible, and I think when the investigation is finished and when she testifies and Judge Kavanaugh testifies, I think a majority of senators will find her credible.
She told her husband, this is a trauma she's been dealing with her whole life. She doesn't want to be in a bedroom that doesn't have two doors.
And it's going to be about listening to what each party has to say, but I believe her.
Do you believe her story?
Well, I can tell you it really does have a ring of truth to it. I am skeptical of polygraphs, but for those who believe them, she has passed a polygraph test.
I believe Dr. Ford, as I refer to her, because she makes a very credible case.
People knew that about her a long time ago. She told a friend a year ago. She told a reporter before Dr. Kavanaugh was ever named.
By the way, I believe Dr. Ford, the survivor. There's every reason to disbelieve Judge Kavanaugh after his evasive and seemingly misleading responses at his testimony.
The Senate shouldn't simply rely on hearing two conflicting accounts and decide, well, we're okay with not knowing, we're okay with the fact that we might be putting someone who committed attempted rape on the Supreme Court of the United States.
The sad part is what you just watched is what liberals call justice. But when it is applied to their own candidate, they don't want to see any of the facts. They also want to support all women unless they're making claims against someone who happens to be a liberal like Joe Biden. Politico and The Hill co-founder Martin Tolchin wrote to the New York Times in response to a piece they put by their editorial board entitled "Investigate Tara Reade's Allegations." This media mogul said, quote, in response to the New York Times, "I totally disagree with this editorial. I don't want an investigation," referring to Joe Biden. "I want a coronation of Joe Biden. I don't want justice, whatever that may be. I want a win. The removal of Donald Trump from office and Mr. Biden is our best chance." Yes, this is wrong, and this is what we can expect from the Liberal Party as they do everything they can to make sure that President Trump is not reelected, and that includes backing Joe Biden no matter what the facts may say. In a bombshell report, we now know that former Trump National Security Advisor Michael Flynn was unfairly prosecuted by the FBI. In fact, members of the FBI went into an interview with Flynn with the sole purpose of trying to get him to lie so that they could fire him or at least get him prosecuted. In other words, they were not investigating a crime. They were trying to create a crime out of thin air. Fox News showed us the actual note that was written by one of the members of the FBI, and I want you to take a look at this.
So after the bombshell FBI notes revealed these telling comments as agents prepared to go to the White House to interrogate National Security Advisor General Michael Flynn, telling him that he didn't need a lawyer, not to worry about that. They had written on, Bill Presap, who was head of counterintelligence at the FBI, wrote this on a piece of paper. "What is our goal? Truth, admission, or to get him to lie so we can prosecute him and get him fired? Question mark.
Now, these documents show also other notes where the FBI weighed the pros and cons of actually doing their investigation by the book. However, it's obvious they chose not to follow their own rules and guidelines. Now, what was Flynn's actual supposed crime? Well, he spoke with then Russian Ambassador Kislyak during the presidential transition period in January of 2017. Now, these handwritten notes written by the FBI's former head of counterintelligence also suggested that they could get Flynn, quote, to admit to breaking the Logan Act when he spoke to Kislyak. Now, it's really important that everyone understand what the Logan Act even is. First off, the Logan Act is an obscure statute that not one time in American history has it ever been used in a criminal prosecution. It was enacted in 1799, which was actually before telephones. And to be clear, the Logan Act was only intended to keep people from falsely claiming to represent the U.S. government when they were abroad. Now, former House Oversight Committee Chairman Trey Gowdy appeared on Fox News and made it a fantastic point. If it was a criminal interview, then why did the FBI treat Flynn so differently than Hillary Clinton? Take a look at this from Fox News.
Was the investigation of General Michael Flynn at the White House routine for the FBI and for the agents who carried it out?
I hope not, Martha. And if it is routine, then why didn't they apply the same standard to Hillary Clinton that they did to Michael Flynn? I mean, if you go back, so Flynn's under investigation in the summer of 2016, a counterintelligence investigation. The FBI found nothing. They didn't find an insufficient amount of evidence. They found no evidence, and they're about to close this investigation, and then he has the conversation with Kislyak. So Comey decides to send bureau agents to the White House. Why? I mean, that's the fundamental question. Were you investigating a crime, the Logan Act, which there's never been a prosecution under that act, or were you conducting a counterintelligence investigation? If it's a criminal interview, then why did you treat him so differently from the way you did Hillary Clinton? Remember, Martha, she had a medium-sized law firm in the room with her. They gave the questions to her lawyers before they interviewed her, and they most assuredly told her there's a consequence for lying, none of which they did for Michael Flynn.
Now, to be clear, these bombshell notes seriously suggest that the contacts that Flynn had with Kislyak during the presidential transition period were nothing more than a pretext to get him prosecuted and fired. Flynn has literally gone through financial ruin, and he's had his family attacked and threatened as well. Now, just last year, prosecutors again rejected the claim that they were hiding evidence, claiming, quote, at the time, the government has exceeded its discovery and disclosure obligations in this matter. Now, including by providing Flynn with thousands of pages of documents, federal prosecutors at the time even went so far as to call the defense's filings, quote, a fishing expedition. Well, earlier this year, Flynn moved to withdraw his guilty plea for making false statements to the FBI. This has gone above and beyond what we would expect from the FBI. And the president has even shown his complete dissatisfaction with all of this and flat out said that General Flynn, quote, is essentially exonerated. Take a look at this from Fox Business.
And then he's essentially exonerated. Now, that's not official yet, but when you read the notes, how could you do anything else? And I hear there's much more coming up.
I agree with President Trump. It's obvious that Michael Flynn was treated unfairly, and he should be exonerated before the president even has to think about even the idea of pardoning him. What we do know is this was wrong from the start, and this is something that we should never expect from the FBI. Thankfully, we have a president who will hold the FBI accountable, and those that have already left the FBI that worked in the Obama administration for their actions. Finally, today on AMAC Weekly News, dealing with China. China has a chokehold on America when it comes to medications and medical supplies. Joining me now to talk about that is Rebecca Weber. She is the CEO of AMAC. Rebecca, thank you for coming on. This magazine is something that AMAC has been working night and day on to get this out to its members because we saw the vulnerability with China and specifically how much control they had over medications and personal protective equipment with COVID-19 outbreak in this country and the pandemic around the world. This is a magazine that every AMAC member needs to be looking for and reading the incredible information. This is something that I think is shocking how much control China really does have over our safety when it comes to our medications.
That's right, Ben. They really do. If China were to slow up production, for example, we here Americans would feel that. Over 90% of antibiotics, for example, are produced in China. And are made from ingredients from China. So, folks, we're in the next issue of the AMAC Magazine, we're very excited to announce, to highlight really and to inform our AMAC members of the dangerous chokehold that China has on U.S. medicine.
You know, something that's so shocking, and when you guys were digging into this research, this is something that's going to be in the article and in this magazine that, again, make sure you look for this magazine because it gives you incredible info, is just how much of this is being produced over there, and none of it is even available to produce in this country. We're completely offline. We don't even have factories dealing with some of these. We don't even have a way to up that, and supplement if there is a lack in production coming from China.
That's right. AMAC is supporting legislation that was put out by Cotton, Blackburn, and Cruz. And essentially, this legislation is about protecting our pharmaceuticals. And it would direct the HHS to provide a list or a registry of all drugs and indicate from what country those drugs are coming from. And it would also force certain medical facilities to only or to purchase zero pharmaceuticals that have any ingredients in it from China. So we're working very hard behind the scenes on that one.
Yeah, Senator Tom Cotton, you just mentioned Arkansas, Senator Blackburn in Tennessee, and Senator Ted Cruz in Texas. This is something they've said we should never allow to happen again. We can't forget what we just went through, and we need to make sure that we can provide and be basically self-sustaining as a nation with our pharmaceuticals. They're not saying that we can't buy things from overseas, but we can't be completely dependent on life-saving drugs from China.
That's right. In 2018, Dan Weber, my father, he warned politicians of the dangers of giving China so much control over our medicines. AMAC has also polled our membership, and our members are overwhelmingly in support of reducing our dependency on communist China. So we are working very hard behind the scenes. And also the WHO, for example, AMAC members recognize that Donald Trump's efforts to hold back funding from the WHO, smart. The WHO in January said that human-to-human transmission was not possible, and they really covered up for China. And we're realizing that, very proud that we have a president that's addressing that. AMAC staying very, very close to this issue, and will continue to inform our members. So definitely check out the magazine and what's coming.
You know, you talk about the magazine. I also want to shift gears for a moment to something a little bit more personal, and that is the last magazine that came out had your father on the cover, your late father, and it was amazing to see how many AMAC members have reached out to you and your family with kind notes about his legacy and what he has left behind. I want to talk a little bit about that.
Thank you so much for bringing that up, because it's so important for me, on behalf of my entire family and all of us here at AMAC, to really thank the members for extending such kind thoughts, words of sympathy, encouragement, compassion. I probably receive about a dozen letters each day for the last number of weeks, and it brings me incredible comfort to read through those kind words. Dan was a wonderful man, and I'm just so proud to be a part of AMAC and to carry on his legacy. So from all of us at AMAC, we thank you all so much.
Well, I know being around you and being around your dad at the AMAC delegate conference and watching how proud he was of you and your brother and the legacy that you guys are taking, I think he found great comfort in knowing that AMAC was just getting started, in his words, and this is going to continue moving forward with this family, and his legacy is definitely alive and well right now, that is for sure.
Thank you so much, Ben. I appreciate that.
A special thank you to Rebecca Weber, the AMAC CEO, for joining us today. And if you want to get that special edition of AMAC Magazine that is going to deal with China and our medications coming from China and the new legislation that we just talked about, make sure you join AMAC or renew your AMAC membership right now. I'm Ben Ferguson, and I'll see you back next week for our next episode.